now available on e-readers everywhere. From the author of the Simp Trilogy, Stop Simping, Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance, Manginas, They Look Like Men But They Act Like Ladies, and The Misadventures of Captain Sailor Holcomb's Stop Simping in the Workplace. Learn what mistakes not to make with women and protect your job with Stop Simping in the Workplace. Available on e-readers everywhere. There was another mass shooting in the national news on Friday. And what made this mass shooting particularly scary for me is that this mass shooting happened not too far from where I live. Now, this Dr. Henry Bellow decided he was going to go back to Bronx Lebanon Hospital on the Grand Concourse with an AR-15 and shoot up the place because he was fired from Bronx Lebanon Hospital 2 years ago. And the reason why he was fired was all due to his own behavior. This Dr. Henry Bellow was a textbook case of an office pervert. And now I go in depth of what an office pervert is in my ebook, Stop Simping in the Workplace, and how dangerous this guy is. And your Dr. Henry Bellow was in the middle of self-destructing, just like many office perverts do when they are in the workplace. And what's really tragic about Dr. Henry Bellow and his self-destruction is that he didn't see the downward spiral he was on before he participated in this mass shooting. Because the big problem with office perverts is that they do not understand boundaries in social situations. And when it comes down to social situations, they often think with their penis. And because they think with their penis, they think it's appropriate to act out sexually in inappropriate places, like on the street and in the workplace. Because the workplace is not a place where a man is supposed to act out sexually or do sexual things. Because if a man does act out sexually in the workplace and does sexual things in the workplace, he will be terminated or he will wind up in a sexual harassment lawsuit or sexual harassment case. And when it comes down to this Dr. Henry Bellow, he was dealing with a sexual harassment claim at work. And that was one of the reasons why they asked him to resign and didn't make an effort to fire him. They were going to fire this man, but they let him resign. And because he was acting out inappropriately sexually, it cost him his career. Moreover, he was almost about to lose his freedom because he had been arrested several times for inappropriately touching women and sexually assaulting women. So this man was on a downward spiral due to his office perversion because his behavior was escalating sexually. And when it comes down to office perverts, oftentimes their behavior escalates to another level. They go from looking at porn on computers or reading pornographic materials at work to going out and doing things like looking up women's skirts or touching on women or saying very inappropriately sexual things to women at work. And this is what your Dr. Henry Bellow was doing. His behavior was escalating at work. He was looking up women's skirts, and then on the streets when he was off of work, he was grabbing women and touching women and then assaulting women. And all of that led to him being forced to resign and leading to his life going into this downward spiral, because your Dr. Henry Bellow was doing quite well when he started work at Bronx Lebanon, but because he had no control over his penis, he wound up costing himself a very good job and a residence in Manhattan. That he was living very well, but he cost himself this because he had no discipline or self-control as it related to his sex and sexuality. He was so caught up in sex and obsessed with it that it put his whole career in jeopardy. And this is what happens to office perverts. This is what I talk about in Stop Simping in the Workplace, because when it comes down to office perverts, what happens is these guys self-destruct. And that's why you have to keep your distance from these guys when you learn about their behavior, because when he self-destructs and you get caught up in the wake of it, it can cost you your job, because any interactions you have with an office pervert, they can have a ripple effect on the outside. If this guy is watching porn and he asks you to watch porn, leave the room. If he has showing you things on a tablet with porn on it, you get out of there. If he's talking about women he's been with or doing things that are in a sexual deviant way, or if he's talking about stuff, you immediately report him to HR and then get out of the way, because this guy is self-destructing. And when it comes down to guys like your Dr. Henry Bellow, what make they self-destruct, and it's just devastating, because this man, he was so caught up in sex, he could not see what he was doing to himself. Your Dr. Henry Bellow was his own worst enemy. He had the education, he had a very good job, but his problem was he didn't know that there is a time and a place for sex, and it's not at the job, and it's not on the street with random people. If you want to have a relationship with women, you have to have social skills, and this man had no social skills. This is why he was grabbing women and saying, "You're coming with me," not looking at the way his behavior was coming across to people. And this is a big problem when it comes down to these office perverts. Now, this Dr. Henry Bellow, his behavior was so deviant and so depraved. He was just truly sick. And what was really sick about him is that he could not see where he was going, because this is a man, again, he was a doctor. He had a good job at a hospital. And what he did was, because he couldn't control himself, he cost himself his job, and he wound up homeless. That's what a lot of people don't know about this Dr. Henry Bellow, that he wound up homeless because he could not control his penis. His penis cost him a good job, a nice home, and put him on the street. And this is what happens to office perverts, because they don't see where they're going. They're so caught up in their lust for sex that they don't see where their lust is taking them, and their lust pretty much destroys them. Unfortunately, when we look at this Dr. Henry Bellow, he fits right in the pattern for what's happening with men, with a lot of men these days in these workplaces who participate in these mass shootings. And again, this has to do with the way these males are raised, because there are no strong male figures to teach them how to navigate the world. They wind up falling apart when they enter the world of work and the world of life. And because these males are not taught what they need to survive in the world, they don't know how to navigate the world. Your Dr. Henry Bellow should have been pulled to the side by some men and talked to about how to act appropriately regarding his sex and sexuality, and how to control his sexual feelings and his sexual emotions, because he needed to be taught how to navigate his sexual emotions and his sexual desires, and understand that just because you're thinking something doesn't mean you act on it. And just because there's an idea in your head doesn't mean you act on it. And because this man was not taught boundaries regarding sex, he wound up participating in this depraved and deviant behavior at the job, and this depraved and deviant behavior cost him his career. Because when a man is looking up skirts, when a man is grabbing on women and touching women who did not ask him to touch them, that's when that man is a sexual deviant. That is sexually deviant behavior, that is sexual assault, and that is a crime. And this man self-destructed because he didn't understand how to control himself. And this is par for the course when it comes down to office perverts. Office perverts on the job aren't going to be on the job that long, because they don't have any control over themselves. They don't know how to act appropriately in situations, and they don't know that their behavior sexually when they act out is inappropriate. And because they don't know these things, they wind up self-destructing and costing themselves their jobs, their homes, and their careers. If a man is fired, he can come back from that if he's in certain situations. However, if it is a sex crime or something sexual happens on the job, that man can't bounce back. And your Dr. Henry Bellow pretty much proves when a man acts out sexually how low he can fall, because when a man goes out here participating in sexually deviant behavior, he becomes a liability to companies, and companies don't want to hire individuals who have participated in sex crimes or have participated in sexually deviant behavior. Once a man goes out here and acts sexually on the job, he is considered tainted, he's considered a liability, and then he's not going to be able to bounce back in terms of his career. So when you look at this Dr. Henry Bellow, he is a textbook case of what happens when an office pervert is on the job. And when an office pervert is on the job, he is going to self-destruct. And if you are caught up in the wake of it, it can cost you your job and your career. And sadly, when it comes down to this case, many people's innocent lives, because this man just didn't have any control over himself, and he didn't have any control over his penis, and he didn't see how his lack of control over his penis had cost him everything that he had worked for. If you want to learn more about the dysfunctional behaviors of workplace simps, you can pick up my ebook, Stop Simping in the Workplace. And if you want to help me make more videos, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking to the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.